Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you how to create an image text design in Photoshop that you can use in your print-on-demand design business. Let's get to it. Hey, thanks for joining me on my channel. My name is Brian and I help people learn how to use Photoshop and create great selling print-on-demand designs. So if this is something which interests you, then please click the subscribe button and don't forget to hit the bell notification item so that you'll be notified every time that I upload a video. So let's jump onto my computer and get today's tutorial going. Okay, so in today's tutorial we're going to create this design that you see here on the screen. What I did was I downloaded some cute woodland animal clip arts and I incorporated them into the word cute. It's really easy to do. We're going to work on each letter individually and then we're going to put them together to create this design that you see here. Now, once you've learned how to do this, obviously you can incorporate it into any design that you want to use, any word that you want to use, and you can scale it up to create some real great print-on-demand t-shirt designs, or to go on posters, or pillows, or coffee mugs, whatever. So let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new document. So click on New, and we're going to use 4500 by 5400 pixels, which effectively is the Merch by Amazon dimensions. I'm going to create that. Alright, and we'll bring the document into the window here, and what we'll do is we're going to overlay this canvas with black. So we're going to click on the padlock icon over here, and then we're going to make sure that black is our foreground color, as we can see here. And then on the keyboard I'm going to hit Alt and Delete to fill up my canvas with black. Okay, so now the first thing that we want to do is we want to drag in one of our clip arts. So I have it here just off the side, and we're going to start off with the frog. So I'm just going to click, and while I'm dragging him in, I'm going to hold the Shift key on the keyboard so that it'll come in centered. Okay, there we go. Then hit Enter to obviously accept the placement. And then I'm going to choose my text icon, and I'm going to make sure that the text color is white. And the hex code for white is 6Fs, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hit Enter, and now as you can see the color is white. So I'm just going to click open a text box, and making sure that my caps lock is on, I'm going to hit the letter C. Now the font that I'm using is Impact because obviously, as the name of the font denotes, it's a bulky, bold type font, which is perfect for this example. Okay, so now the next thing that I want to do is I want to increase the size of this letter C. So we're going to hit Control T on the keyboard or Command T on a Mac. And whilst holding the Shift key on the keyboard so that we can keep everything proportionate, I'm going to grab the corner handle here, and I'm just going to left click and drag outwards so that I can increase the size. Okay, now obviously if you run out of size on the canvas, the best thing that you can do is you can obviously shrink your canvas by hitting Control and the minus key on the keyboard. And as you can see, I've zoomed out, and you can continue then obviously increasing the size of the T. So again, I'm holding the Shift key on the keyboard, grabbing the bottom corner, and I'm dragging outwards so that I can get the letter C to the size that I want it. Alright, and just a bit too big. Once you're happy with it, you can just click after releasing the Shift key, and you can drag it around till you get it to the part where you want. Alright, so I'm going to try and bring it around there. I'm going to shrink it just a little bit. You just need to play around with it because obviously every clip art, every letter is going to be slightly different, and obviously everybody's taste is going to be different too as well. So I think we can keep it like that. Yeah, and if you want to refine it a little bit more, just hit the cursor keys on your keyboard, your left, right, up, and down, and that'll give you a little bit more dimension in terms of how you can place the clip art. So that's what I'm going to do that with the C. I'm just hitting the right cursor key until I get it to where I want it to be. Okay, very good. Once I'm happy, I hit Enter on the keyboard. All right. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to grab our frog layer, and we're going to drag it to the top of the layer palette. Okay, so that obviously comes over the letter C, and then we want to duplicate it. So we're going to duplicate it by hitting Control or Command J on the keyboard. So Control J, and now I have a duplicate of the frog clip art, and I'm going to just hide that one for a moment, okay? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take this first layer here of the frog clip art, and we're going to create a clipping mask over the letter C. Now to do that, I want to hold the Alt key on the keyboard, and then whilst hovering the mouse between the layers of the clip art and the letter C, I'm just going to click once with the left mouse button, and you can see that the frog now has been masked into the letter C. Okay, now don't panic over here, we're right on track. It's super simple to do. Now, what we want to do is we want to bring back certain aspects of the frog outside of the letter C to give it an effect that it's been sort of like merged into the letter. And that's super simple to do. And we're going to go back to the copied layer of our frog. We're going to turn it back on again. Okay, and we've got it over the letter C, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a layer mask over it. So to create a layer mask, you're going to go down to the icon over here, and you're going to click on it, and you've got this layer mask which appears here. Now we want to invert the layer mask, so click on it, and then on the keyboard hit the letter Control plus I. All right, Control I. All right, and as you can see here, the mask has gone black. Now we want to make sure that our foreground color is white, and then we're going to choose the brush tool. So we're going to hit B on the keyboard to get brush, and now what we're going to do is we're going to paint with white. But in order to be very selective as to where we're going to paint, we need to bring back sort of like an outline of the clip art so that we can be selective in terms of where we want to bring back in over the letter C. So to do that, we're going to go back to our first layer icon, and whilst holding the Control key on the keyboard, we're going to click over the icon for the frog here. So we're going to click on it, and as you can see here, you've got the outline of the frog appearing. You got those marching ants around there. Now that gives us a better idea as to where we're going to paint with white to bring back the parts that we want of the frog, but not kill the letter C. We still want the letter C to be very, very prominent in this design, okay? So I've got white here as my foreground color. I've chosen the brush tool, and now I'm going to start painting it. Okay, and we'll paint a little bit here, and we'll bring back some of the legs and the toes here. And we'll bring back a little bit here. Obviously, you can be a little bit more precise in terms of what you want to come up. You can be selective. It's all up to you. That's the creative aspect of this design. So you can do it any way that you like. In fact, this design that we're making clearly is not going to be an exact duplicate of the one that I showed you, because understandably, when you are obviously painting in and out the different colors and obviously the different aspects of the clip art, it's going to be a little bit different. But that's okay. That's the fun part of this whole process, okay? So when you're happy with what you've brought back, you're just going to hit Control-D on the keyboard to obviously turn off the selection, okay? And if there's something that you don't like and you want to zoom in, like let's say for example this corner over here, I'm not too happy about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn back on the selection, and then I'm going to switch the colors to black, so that obviously I'm going to be painting with black to erase, making sure that I've clicked on the layer mask. I'm going to reduce the size of the brush, and I'm just going to get in there, and I'm just going to get rid of that little triangle part that was jutting out too as well. Okay, now when I'm happy with that, I just zoom out, hit Control-D on the keyboard, and we have the first part of our design ready. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to continue building up this document. All right, so I'm going to duplicate the letter C here, the layer for letter C, by hitting Control-J on the keyboard after I've obviously made that layer active. Okay, and then with the new copy layer active, I'm going to hold the Shift key on the keyboard, and I'm going to click on the first layer at the top. Okay, so you can see they're all highlighted, and then I'm going to hit Control-G on the keyboard. So after I've grouped the layers together, I want to give it a name so that I'll be able to obviously know which layers I'm working with when I build up this this document. So I'm just going to double click on group 1, and I'm going to type in the letter C, and then hyphen, and the character is a frog, so I'm going to type in the letter F-R-O-G. Okay. After I've renamed the layer, I'm just going to hide it. So I'm just going to turn off the eye icon over there, and we've gone back to the letter C. Now the next letter obviously is U, so hitting the T on the keyboard to activate the text tool, we're going to highlight the letter C, making sure the caps lock on, and then we're going to hit the letter U on the keyboard to make the letter U over there. We're going to clear to the move tool. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bring the bear clip art onto the canvas so that we can do the same thing like we did with the frog and the letter C. Okay. Whilst holding the shift key, I have my clip arts on a separate window open just off camera, and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag and bring the bear into place here. Now what I want to do is I want to tilt the bear a little bit, so make it look like it's coming out from the letter U on the right hand side. Whilst I still have the boundary lines open, I'm just going to hover outside, and you can see that the arrow has changed into sort of like a half crescent line with two arrows on the top and the bottom. And whilst holding the left mouse button, I'm just going to click and drag it a little bit off to the right here. And then I'll just move it a little bit to the right here some more. Now it's a little bit too large, so I want to obviously hold the shift key, and I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. And just again, like we did with the frog icon, we want to play around with it until we get it to a part or to a place where we're actually happy. And that looks pretty good over there. Okay, now once I have my clip art where I want it to be, we're going to do the same steps that we did with the frog. So we're going to obviously duplicate the bear icon by hitting Control J on the keyboard, whilst obviously the bear layer icon is still active. We're going to hide it. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to clip the bear into the letter U by holding the Alt key, hovering the mouse pointer between the two layers, and then we're just going to click, and we've got that bear is now clipped into the letter U. We'll turn back on the duplicate layer of the bear. So now we're going to create a layer mask for this duplicate layer, and then clicking on the layer mask icon, we're going to hit Control I on the keyboard to invert the mask so that we get black. Okay, so now that we have the mask active, what we want to do is we want to bring the outline of the bear back, and to do that, we need to go back to the first layer of the bear, and then whilst holding the Control key on the keyboard, we're going to click into the icon area so that we can get the marching ants for the bear icon out. And then we're going to choose obviously B on the keyboard to bring back the brush tool. We're going to increase the size of the brush tool by hitting the right bracket key on the keyboard. So that's obviously going to increase. And then once we're happy with the size of the brush, we can start painting in all the parts of the bear that we want to have back into view. Okay, and I think that is great. We're going to hit Control D on the keyboard to obviously deselect, and now we have the bear component of this design ready. Okay, so now the next thing we need to do is we need to obviously group our bear layers together. So we already have the copy of the U layer active. So we're going to hold the shift key on the keyboard, and then we're going to click on the top layer of the bear. And once we have those active, we're going to hit Control G on the keyboard. Then we'll double click on it so that we can rename it. And we'll type in the letter U and hyphen and the word bear. Okay, hit enter on the keyboard, and we're going to hide that. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to work on the next letter, which in this case is the letter T. So hitting T on the keyboard to activate the type tool, we're going to highlight and we're going to hit the letter T. Okay, we'll just clear that now, and now what we'll do is we're going to bring in the dragonfly. Okay, so I'm just going to bring that in holding the shift key on the keyboard. I've dragged it in. Okay, and whilst we still have the boundary box, we're just going to move it around. We're going to bring it up, and we're going to rotate a little bit to the left so that we can hover the wings over the top of the T, so that we can actually make it look like the wings of the dragonfly in fact form part of the T. And once we're happy with it, we're going to hit enter on the keyboard. We're going to duplicate it, Control J, hide the duplicated layer, and then what we're going to do is we're going to clip the original layer into the letter T. We'll hold the Alt key on the keyboard, and obviously we're going to clip them in. Then we'll turn back on the duplicate layer of the dragonfly. Then we're going to obviously click on it, make it active, and create a layer mask for it. We're going to invert the layer mask by clicking on the layer mask, then hitting Control I on the keyboard. I'm repeating these things so that obviously starts getting ingrained into your thought process, okay? So obviously in doing so, then it becomes second nature, and you'll be able to fly through this process with whatever word that you want to do, and obviously irrespective of how many letters that particular word has, okay? So now that we've inverted our layer mask, we're going to hit B on the keyboard so that we can start painting in. We're going to hit Control on the keyboard, and then we're going to click on the icon for the original dragonfly layer to bring those marching ants up, and then we're going to start painting in onto the layer mask to bring aspects of the dragonfly back into play. Okay, back into view. So I'm going to bring all that in and all that in and this piece over here. Let's just bring it, let me give it a little bit more here to bring more of the detail in. Okay, once we're happy with it, like we did before with the other letters, we're going to duplicate the letter T. So click on the layer of the letter T to make it active, hit Control J on the keyboard, and then with the copied layer active, we're going to hold down the Shift key, and then we're going to click on the top layer of the dragonfly so that we have those 3 layers active, hit Control G on the keyboard to group them, and then we'll double click to rename, and we'll see the letter T, and we'll just type dragonfly. Okay, and then we're going to turn off that layer. Okay, so now the final part of this design is the letter E. So let's change the letter T to an E, bring in the clip art, and start rounding off this design together. So let's take a look back into the computer. We're going to click on the letter T to make it active, and hitting the T on the keyboard, we're going to highlight the letter T and change it to the letter E. Okay, and now what we're going to do is bring in the hedgehog clip art so that we can incorporate it into the letter E. Whilst holding the Shift key on the keyboard, I'm going to click on the hedgehog clip art, and I'm just going to drag it in to the canvas so that it comes through. Okay, and it's already a pretty good size, so let's just drag it to where we want it to be. We're going to try and bring its feet down, just touching the bottom of the letter E, and then we'll just increase the size. What I want to do is I want to bring some of the bristles here on the top of the hedgehog up to the top of the letter E. So I'm going to hold the Shift key on the keyboard, and I'm going to grab the top right corner handle and just click and drag. Don't worry if it's moved off, we can still place it wherever we want. We'll just click and move it around. Okay, we'll move it a little bit more to the left here. Alright, I'm happy with that. So we're going to hit Enter on the keyboard. Okay, and as we did with the other clip arts, we're going to duplicate the hedgehog layer. We'll turn off the duplicated layer, and then we're going to clip the first layer of the hedgehog into the letter E by holding the Alt key on the keyboard, hovering the mouse pointer over the two layers, and then obviously we're just going to clip accordingly. Now, we go back to the copied layer of the hedgehog. We're going to make that active, and then we're going to put a layer mask on it. We'll click on the layer mask, hit Control I on the keyboard to invert it. Okay, then on the original hedgehog layer, I'm going to hold the Control key on the keyboard. I'm going to click on the icon so that we get those marching ants. And then making sure that white is my foreground color, I'm going to hit B on the keyboard. And I'm going to obviously brush parts of the hedgehog that I want back into the design. Okay, and I think what we'll do is we'll just keep that portion active. We'll hit Control D on the keyboard. Okay, and now we have our hedgehog incorporated into the letter E. As we did with the dragonfly, frog, and bear layers, we're going to click on all 3 layers whilst holding the Shift key and hit Control G on the keyboard to group them together. I'll double click on it, and I'll rename it as the letter E hyphen hedgehog. Okay, hit Enter on the keyboard, and now I have all 4 components of my design ready. Alright, so now what I want to do is I want to resize all 4 layers so that I make sure that each component will fit nicely on the canvas, so that then we can prepare it for our t-shirt, poster, coffee mug designs, however we're going to use it. Okay, so let's go back to my computer here, and now what we're going to do is we're going to activate all of the designs. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the Shift key on the keyboard, and I'm going to click on the first layer to highlight all of them, and I'm going to hit Control T on the keyboard. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to transform and resize all 4 layers simultaneously, and I want to be a little bit more specific. So at the top here, after I've hit Control T, I've got my width and my height fields. So I'm just going to double click on the width, and I'm going to drop them down to about 50%, and I'm going to do the same thing for the height, so 50%. I might have to tweak it a little bit more. I don't know. We're going to play around with it so that we can see what fits best. But we're dropping it down to 50% as a start-off point. So now I'm going to hit Enter on the keyboard. So obviously it will accept the changes. It's made all the changes. And now what I want to do is I want to create my my guides. So I'm going to hit Alt on the keyboard, V for View, and then E for Guides. And whilst I'm on vertical, I'm going to type in 2250. So that's obviously the halfway point of the 4500 pixel. Then I'm going to do the horizontal as well, so Alt V E, and making sure that horizontal is toggled, I'm going to key in 2700. Okay, so now that I have my guide set, all I need to do is start placing each of the layers to where I would like them to be. Okay, so I'm going to hit Control T again on the keyboard so that I have a better idea of where the center point for all of them is. Okay, so I brought the vertical center point over the horizontal guide, and that's just going to help me to ensure that all of the layers are going to be obviously aligned horizontally as I start moving them around. So hit enter on the keyboard. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to start placing each of my layers accordingly so that we can get a nice straight horizontal design that's going to look nice on anything that I upload it to. Okay, so let's turn off the bottom 3 layers and we're just going to work on the frog layer and make sure that my move tool is active. Alright, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click and I'm going to move the letter C a little bit to the left. Again, we're going to play around with it. It's not going to come perfect the first time, but that's okay. That's the beauty of design. Now, once I have the frog clip art in place, I'm going to toggle on the bear icon with the letter U. Okay, as you can see, it's already quite close, which is pretty good, but I'm going to move it a little bit more to the left. So I'm making sure that the bear layer is active. I'm going to use the left cursor key on the keyboard to move it towards the left, and I want to sort of bring the U just underneath the toe of the frog, so to give it a bit of an overlap type of appearance. Okay, now once I'm happy with that, I'm going to turn on the dragonfly layer, and now I'm going to need to move that one to the right. So I'm going to use the right cursor key on the keyboard. I'm just simply holding it down and letting it move. If you're a bit more of a rush, you can just grab the left mouse button, click and drag. Can you see those purple lines that are appearing? That's just ensuring that you are obviously in line both at the top and the bottom with the other layers. Okay, and obviously as we get closer to the position where we want it to be, all right, we can just let go. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to bring it down ever so slightly because I moved it with when I was using the mouse button. Okay, and again, I want to leave it just underneath the ear of the bear. All right, now as you can see, we don't have enough room for the letter E, so we need to shrink a little bit more. So even though I haven't touched the letter E yet, I want to make sure that it's included in the transformation. So I'm going to click on the frog layer to make it active, and I'm going to hold the shift key on the keyboard, and I'm going to click on the last layer, which in this case is the hedgehog layer for letter E. And then I'm going to hit Control T on the keyboard, and I'm going to shrink again some more. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the shift key on the keyboard and grab the bottom left hand corner, and I'm just going to drag in so that it will shrink. And we'll keep going to about there. Alright, and now what I'll do is I'm going to move everything to the left, just hovering all of the clip arts just above the center, just above the horizontal line. Okay, and if I hit enter on the keyboard to accept, I think when I toggle on the hedgehog layer, we're going to be where we need to be. So it's obviously underneath all of the layers. I'm going to click the left mouse button and I'm just going to drag to the right, getting it to the part where I'm going to be happy with it. Now I don't want the hedgehog's nose to be behind the letter T. So in order to bring it above the letter T, I need to move the layer for the hedgehog above the dragonfly layer. So I'm going to click on the layer and I'm going to hold the left mouse button and I'm just going to click and drag it until it goes over the dragonfly and just between the bear icon and the dragonfly layer. Okay, and obviously if you did it right, you'll see that the hedgehog's nose is just over the letter T, which I think looks really good. I'm just going to bring it a little bit more to the left to refine it using the left arrow key. Okay, and there we have the design is how I want it to turn out. But obviously it's not centered, so what we're going to do now is we're going to create a stamped layer of all of the design so that we're not affecting the individual layers. Okay, and that way we're going to work with the stamped layer to obviously tweak the vertical and the horizontal center. Okay, and that way we can tweak it to make sure that it's centered according to how we want it to appear on the canvas. So in order to do that, and to make sure that you don't get black in your stamp, it's very important to turn off the background. All right, I used to make this mistake a lot too as well. Turn off the background, it'll save you a lot of trouble down the road. Okay, so we're going to turn it off. Okay, and then what we're going to do is going to click on the top layer. Okay, and then on the keyboard, you're going to press 4 keys in sequential order. Control, Shift, Alt, and the letter E to stamp it. So once I do that, Control, Shift, Alt, and the letter E, you're going to see now I have a stamped layer, created a new layer called Layer 1, and if I turn off the other layers, I now have a stamped layer of all 4 clip arts together. Now here's where I can play around to see where I want the design. Obviously I want it centered vertically, but I want the pattern to fit over the top part of the chest. Okay, so if it's going on a t-shirt, I don't want it over the belly. I don't want it below the belly. I want it just nicely above the chest here over here. So let's make sure that obviously we're centered. We're going to turn on the background layer again so we can see what we're working on. And as you can see now, we've got the boundary wall around it. And those, the top and the bottom middle dots is indicated the center of the design. So if I just click and drag and I bring it over the vertical guideline, I now know that I'm dead center vertically. Okay, and what I want to do now is I want to just bring it up a little bit more, and I can do that using the up cursor key so that I don't move the horizontal around. So I'm just going to click and hold until it gets up to a part where I'm going to be happy with it. All right, and I think right there is good. Now if I want to increase the size a little bit, I can as well. Hit Control T on the keyboard. All right, and again we have our transform dimension tools up here at the top, and let's increase it by about 10%. So we're going to double click on the width and we're going to make it 110, and then we'll hit the tab key to move on to the height field, and again we're going to key in 110. All right, we've just increased it by a little bit so that obviously it'll be nice and bold on the shirt when we upload it into our print-on-demand platforms like Redbubble, TeePublic, and what have you. So we'll hit enter on the keyboard to obviously accept the change, and then what we'll do is we're going to turn off the background icon. All right, and now we have our design ready to be saved as a PNG, and then we can upload it accordingly on Redbubble, TeePublic, Zazzle, Society6, Merch by Amazon, whatever platform you are currently using. Even if it's all of them, good luck to you with that. So basically that's it in terms of how to create an image text effect in Photoshop. If you don't have Photoshop, as I've stated before in previous videos, you can use Photopea. It's photopea.com. You can basically do the same thing on Photopea that you just saw here on Photoshop. And then obviously you're going to download a PNG file with a transparent background that you can use accordingly for your print on demand. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it provided value. Again, if you're new to this channel and you liked what you saw, please do come and join us in our community. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell notification icon. It's a real fun design to do. I've got a lot more to share with you. And but for today, be safe, be well, be creative. Bye for now.